This is Justin.
And this is Haley, and you're listening to The Price of Avocado Toast.
We're a married millennial couple wanting to normalize conversations about money. We want to hear about your highs and your lows,
The do's and the don'ts on your path towards financial freedom. Hi Toasties, welcome to Price of Avocado Toast.
Whether you're a first-time listener or you've been following us from the start of this thing, we're so glad to have this conversation with you today.
Wow, I'm so excited for this episode, and that's all I have to say.
Yeah, today is going to be the episode where we share our interview with Vee Frugal Fox from Instagram and the Vee Frugal Fox brand, I guess. We do want to give a couple content warnings ahead of time. We do have some explicit language in the podcast today, and while we do mark all of our episodes explicit because there's usually one or two curse words, today's a little bit more. So just be mindful of that if you're listening to the podcast around children. We also want to give a content warning just because we do talk about some deeper content, particularly some mention of trauma and abuse in relationships. So we want to let you all know about that and be mindful of it ahead of time in case that's something that might be difficult for you to listen to.
This is the best interview I think we've ever done. There's a lot to it. I hope that you stick around until the end.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really important interview, and I think that it's going to be good for our listeners to hear some of this and hear the vulnerability between the conversation we got to have with Vee.
Definitely. Well, I hope you guys enjoy.
All right, you guys, today we are sitting down with Vee from Vee Frugal Fox on Instagram. Vee, thank you so much for taking some time to sit down with us. I know that Haley has been hyped to get to talk to you, and I always like seeing my wife smile, so thank you so much. You make my life easier.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to talk to you guys as well.
I have so many questions for you about everything, but I feel like naturally we have to go back to the beginning of time. Not like the day you were born, but your finance journey. So can you just tell everyone a little bit about like who you are and how you even got started with all of this?
Yeah. So I was born September. I'm just kidding. So in 2016, I had just graduated from college, UNC, and I had just gotten married. And I remember it was January 4th, 2016. And I was sitting at our kitchen table, and I realized that I couldn't afford my food, my medication, and my student loan payment. And I, in that moment, realized, something's got to change. Like, I grew up middle class, but we never had any money because my parents had a very big spending problem, and they weren't financially educated, and money was not talked about in the home at all. Like, I knew basically when things were bad because we would always eat ramen at the end of the month. But outside of that, like, we just didn't talk about it. And so it's like, I don't want to be like my parents. I don't want to be struggling paycheck to paycheck. I want to be able to afford my medication and my food. And so I did a quick Google search, ended up on Pinterest, and that's where I found Dave Ramsey. And ever since that day, my entire life, my trajectory changed. I got on a budget. I stopped spending money. I did the whole rice and beans shenanigans, and I knocked out about $50,000 worth of debt in a year. Paid off my student loans, which were about $18,000. We had credit card debt, personal loan debt, student loan debt, auto debt, like just everything. And then life just decided to punch me in the face. And I ended up getting separated from my husband and divorced, which pretty much threw a wrench in my entire life. And I pretty much put like a pause on Vee Frugal Fox, just because it was a very messy divorce, very tumultuous, and the marriage was messy and tumultuous too. So put a pause on it, and I finally got divorced. And then I lost my job.
One thing after another.
Yeah, it just was all a clusterfuck. And so I lost my job, and I think in that moment I was just like, you know what? I started applying, and I was just applying these jobs where it was just making no money. The experience that I had, but they just weren't calling me back. And I was like, why am I wasting my time?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm just going to start my own business. Like, I literally have nothing to lose. So let's just do it. And that's when I turned Vee Fox into Weir digital marketing. And that's kind of how I started getting my foot into the professional personal finance industry. And so now, you know, I run Vee Fox as a brand. I run Weir digital marketing, which helps people like Vee Fox, the brand, do podcasting, YouTube, Instagram, influencers basically in the personal finance space. I help them with all of their content creation. And then I moved into a house with my husband now. And I moved to Ohio, and then now we moved to Colorado. So yeah, that's where I am.
So I want to ask, and you don't have to give up, you know, your clients or anything, but when you're working through this content creation, are you helping them come up with these ideas? Are you, you know, giving them suggestions for ways to market things, or are they approaching you and saying, "Hey, this is an idea. How can we make it come to fruition?" Like, have you found what the balance is between that?
It just depends person to person. I mean, I've done work for several people in the community, several people that you've had on the podcast, but some people really are like, you know, you understand my brand, you understand my education and what I want to talk about. So here are my passwords. Go on Canva, do your thing. And then other people make the content and we schedule it. It just depends client by client. But I really have found passion in the niche because, you know, when I was paying off debt, people thought I was crazy and blah, 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 told me I was money obsessed and all this bullshit. But I've really turned it into a career and into something that I am really not tired of. And I put my heart and my soul into the content that I create. And I really, at the end of the day, everything that I create for anybody, I think of the end user and how I'm impacting their life. And I really try to work and operate from that place. So all that to say, it's by client. It doesn't really, there's no like set formula, which I like because, you know, when I started my business, I was like, I just don't want to be bored. Like I was really bored with all my jobs. I got very bored quickly. And having your own business, it's something new every day. So
Were you working in the digital marketing field as your career prior to launching your own business, or did you just find that this was a passion of yours?
So I went to Carolina for communications, and then I got a minor in women's and gender studies. So yes, I declared my major as communications when I was a freshman, and I never changed. I actually started my own marketing firm in 2012. So like right when I was like 18 or 19, and then that didn't work out for various reasons. But yeah, I've always been in the digital marketing space in no matter what industry I've been in. My first job in a professional capacity with digital marketing was I was the city of Wilmington's social media manager for their Parks and Rec department and their greenway spaces. And then my first job out of college was at Reach Jewelers in their marketing department for social media. And then I stayed in the toy gifting game industry for 3 years. And then I opened my own business.
So, you know, I follow the Frugal Fox. You and I talk all the time. And I knew that you did digital marketing, but I didn't know to the extent of it. And when I found out to the extent that you do this and some of your clients, I swear to God, I was mind blown. I said to Justin 500 times that day, like, I cannot believe I didn't know this. How is this happening? Like, you work with so many people, and I was just mind blown the whole time. Like, what a cool thing to be able to connect with so many awesome creators and be able to help them with their brands. I feel like that would just be the most fulfilling job. So I was super excited to find that out.
Yeah, and it's so unique. Like all of the content that, you know, these creators are putting out is so unique. And then so hearing that it's like, wait, there's like kind of one brain behind a lot of this stuff, or there's like one, you know, master, like skilled human doing all this and keeping all of these like really clear, you know, lanes separated, because you do work with a really large group of people that have their lanes for what the type of content they put out is. And yeah, when Haley showed me the list, I was shocked. I was like, we follow them. I love looking at their stuff. And it was just really cool to see like, wow, somebody's doing this and making it all work and doing a really good job of it. So shout out to you for building that to something that's really, really well done.
Oh, well, thank you. I really need that.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, I work with people in the fire community, in the debt-free community, in the real estate community. I work on award-winning podcasts to people that, don't have 1,000 followers on Instagram. I've really been able to cultivate relationships and been able to interweave them in a way that really works for everybody and benefits everybody. I'm a very big collaboration over competition person.
Yeah.
And I really try to facilitate different connections. And I think the more that we know each other, the more that we work with each other, the more people will be educated in a way that I wasn't growing up. Like I said, like everything that I think about, I'm like, okay, well, how is this going to help people at the end of the day? So thank you. I really love what I do. And I've been able to meet some of the people that I swooned over, when I first started my business, like Stephanie O'Connell was one of my clients. And for those of you who don't know, she talks about women's ambition and financial feminism. And she has a editorial on Facebook Bulletin. And I remember watching her in 2016 just make all these insane moves and talk about things that I was so passionate about. And I remember being like, man, one day I'm going to talk to her. And then she ended up being my client. Same thing with your last guest, Budget Girl. I met her at FinCon and we've been able to cultivate a good relationship. And I just remember watching her on YouTube and I'd be like, oh my God, she is the shit. Like, I cannot wait to meet her. And then I did. And now she's one of my clients. So it's like, I don't know. I've just been able to really make a dream come true. And I'm very proud of what I've built. And it's a lot of fun. At the end of the day, it's fun. Like that's the best part.
Yeah, you should be really proud. It's pretty cool. So I want to ask, do you think that there's something difficult about social media that you've kind of picked up on? Or is there some skill that you're like, you know what, I've been able to kind of master this and that's what's helping your brand grow? Because I personally do find social media difficult. Like Haley runs the Instagram and I enjoy it, but I think it is kind of difficult at times. And again, it seems like you're juggling so many different things and really making it work. Is there something that you've found that you're like, yeah, I actually am pretty skilled at this, or this is something that you like to market most?
I think that what many creators don't understand is that, what I do is a full-time job. If you really want to grow on social media, you have to put everything in it. You have to be on all the time. And as a creator myself and as somebody who controls a lot of the content that goes out in the personal finance space, like, yes, it is a full-time job. I have a team of 3 that helps me. It's something that you have to be willing to put a lot of time and effort into. It's not just going to happen overnight. And people get so frustrated with, well, I'm not growing. And my first question is, how many reels do you put out a week? How many stories do you put out a week? Are you answering questions immediately? Are you in people's DMs? Are you the list goes on and on and on. And it's frustrating. And of course, it's also a double-edged sword because I see the negativity in social media as well. And I get burnt out because you guys only have the Price of Avocado Toast Instagram. I have like 10.
Yeah.
And I have to create content that's unique for all of those people. And I have to create content for myself in a way that is unique to me. So it really is a full-time gig. And you have to be willing to put hours into it.
I think that's probably the best answer I could have expected from my question, because I think that's where I struggle, is like, it takes work. And people for some reason think that it's just like doom scrolling on social media and like hanging out. Like, no, it takes effort to build a brand. It takes hard work and engagement, and you're constantly trying to connect with people and build authentic relationships, and that takes time. And a lot of people don't value that in the social media content space.
A lot of people think that you just like show up and the followers just come, or that people that spend their time doing social media management are just laying on the couch not working. But it's work. work.
Oh man, if only that were the case. Damn. No, I mean yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's social media. Like
Yeah.
social. Social is a huge aspect. And also to piggyback on what I said earlier, like I do monthly reports and I'm looking at data. I'm looking at analytics. I'm looking at where people are going. I'm also looking at ratios for followers to follower count and going in, and I'm constantly deleting people from my follower list because I want my engagement level to go up. Like it is a science. It is something that takes a lot of work. And it's not just like you can put your pretty face on Instagram and have tons of followers. And also, I think that especially in the personal finance space, I think that we're jaded because when TikTok came out, people were TikTok and Reels. When all of that came out, people were getting famous instantly.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in the community for 5 going on 6 years, and I don't even have 20,000 followers. And I say that because it's not instantaneous. It's not overnight for everybody. And I think people really need to understand that. Like I've created and cultivated a community. I call it the Fox Den that I'm super, super proud of. And I love all 17,000 people are there because I want them to be there because I bring value to them. But, it's not an overnight success. I think people look at platforms that have hundreds of thousands of followers and they don't see the work that has really gone behind it, or the marketing teams like myself that might be behind it, and the hours of the creator themselves that might be behind it. And it's just not as easy as sitting on the couch and posting pictures 3 times a day. It's very strategic. A lot of analytics go behind it, a lot of data, and so much time. I mean, for Vee Frugal Fox, I spend 2 hours just thinking and creating content. That's not even engaging. Not to mention the copywriting and the stories and everything else that goes behind it. And I'm also constantly researching new features that are coming out, which Instagram is particularly really trying to cater to the creator and to the influencer. And they're coming out with a bunch of new features within the next 6 months, which I think is really going to change the game. But keeping up with that and using those features, because if you don't use those features, you're not going to be rewarded in the way of engagement and followers. So in closing, it is a lot of work. And if you really want to be successful, you have to be willing to spend the time and research.
This was super, super helpful, and I hope that this helps the toasties listening who think, oh, they just scroll on social media or building a brand to second guess the time and effort that goes into it, because it is hard work. I spend so many hours. I am disgusted at my screen time. It's awful. I spend so many hours on Instagram, and that's not even full time. Like, I'm doing that and being a mom and doing other things at the same time. Like, I can't even imagine how much effort you have to put into this. But just like you said, this is your full time job, and you have a team of other people helping you do this and build your brand. One thing that really impressed me, like I said, I didn't even know, like, to the extent, because you don't talk about this very often. Like, you are Vee Frugal Fox, and you're not sitting there, like, telling everyone to come work with you under weird digital marketing. So that's why I kind of had no idea that, like, to the extent that you're even doing this. So you're very humble.
Oh, well, thank you. I talk about weird digital marketing on Vee Frugal Fox very strategically. And I think to your point about, spending hours on Instagram, I think that spending hours on Instagram, I do think is key. I don't know if many marketers will tell you that, but I think it's key. But spending time intentionally is more of how you need to go about it.
Yeah.
And being aware of who you follow, how you engage with people on Instagram, because the algorithm all picks up on that and will put your account in a certain position in search and ranking due to that activity. So it's about intentional management. And that's really what my company does. But yeah, I don't talk about weird digital marketing that often on Vee Frugal Fox. And it's because, I really want Vee Frugal Fox to be more of a place for education, less of selling. I mean, I sell my soap on Vee Frugal Fox, but I'm trying not to. I just feel like there are so many courses and so many money, and there's nothing wrong with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with selling anything on Instagram. I mean, all of my clients do. It's just I don't want it to be that for my brand specifically, at least at the moment. I'm still focusing on growth. I'm still focusing on education and trying to be a platform people can go to get all their financial education. As far as like selling, I just sell my soap on Vee Frugal Fox because I like doing that. So
I really resonate with that because being a financial coach and having our brand, I don't want to just shove down everyone's throat, hey, come work with me, come work with me, come work with me, because those are the people that I personally unfollow. When all of a sudden I liked you and then your page turns into only sales, then I'm like, wait, where'd you go? Like, that's not why I originally followed you. So there's definitely has to be some strategy behind that. So I really relate with that because I want people to know that I'm a coach, but that's not all that I am, and I don't want it to just be like constantly.
Yeah, and I do talk about like weird digital marketing in my stories, but I've only posted about it a couple of times. And I think it's also because I come from like in 2016, it was only a handful of us, and then it got bigger and bigger, and then it evolved into what it is today on Instagram. And in the old days, in the old days, no one was selling anything. We were all literally just trying to get out of debt. We were all just there hyping each other up, like really involved in each other's debt-free stories because we were all, miserable and in debt. So no one was like selling cash envelopes or stickers or merch or courses or, lead funnels, or it was nothing like that, like it is today. And I love, people always come at me and they're like, aren't you mad that people are blah, blah, blah? I'm like, no, like the community has evolved and includes so many different sects now. Like that's really what it's all about. It's about people from different places and doing different things to reach financial independence. And I love how it's grown and how it's changed. But I do just want to keep Vee Frugal Fox as accessible as possible. So
That's great. Can I ask you one marketing tip, maybe for free?
yeah.
Okay, cool. What's the Reels sweet spot in a week? If you were like, hey, if you're even thinking of growing your brand, like you need to be putting out this many Reels in a week. 7. Like, I
Once a
want
day?
people to hear that. 7. Like, that's what I say. Like, yo, Reels are where people grow. And it doesn't have to be salesy, but like that's what people engage with. That's what I think Instagram is becoming, is the opportunity to just scroll through Reels, not follow your friends and like family like in Facebook or something. And like, it takes work. Those Reels take work. People need to know that.
I'll give you even more tips. Yeah, I would say 7 to 9 Reels a week, once a day, preferably, because Instagram recently came out and they said they are no longer a photo sharing platform. They are a video platform. And so what we need to do is cater to that because that's what the algorithm is going to favor. And you are not going to see the reach that you would if you're just doing regular static posts as you would when you're doing Reels. You should be putting out a plethora of different media. So Reels, video, carousels, and then static posts. And you should be showing up on your stories 3 times a day, at least morning, afternoon, and evening, just to, because when you post a stories, it automatically like pushes you to the top. So you always want to be pushed to the top. But yeah, and Instagram is really hitting hard the influencer marketing. That's where they're headed in 2022. They are going to be, actually, it's kind of word around the block, is they are going to be putting a paid paywall for creators. So they're going to be building in kind of like an OnlyFans or a Patreon kind of system where you can pay your creators and that you'll have exclusive access to them in some way, shape, or form. And the creators will decide that, I'm assuming.
Interesting.
But I mean, even as a creator, I'm like, okay, well, if 1% of my audience decides to pay me $5 a month, that's $800 a month. That's 1% of my audience.
Yeah.
So they're really pushing that. So you're absolutely right. It is video content all day long. Content is king. If you want video content is king. if you want to grow on Instagram, I would suggest posting 2 times a day, reels and static posts. I would suggest the static posts be carousel slider posts or tweets, which are screenshotted. And that's all the free information I'm going to give you.
This was super free
Yeah, I
information.
feel
was
like
amazing.
that was just like Instagram 101. Like
Yeah.
that's a college intro course right there. I think a lot of the
$500.
folks yeah, for real. Like a lot of the folks listening are gonna be like, "Oh, sweet, now I know."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna actually reverse. What's that song? Step it and reverse it.
Missy Elliott.
How does it go?
I put my thing down, flip
Thing
it,
down,
and
flip
reverse
it, and reverse it.
That's it. That's what I'm.
She's all step it and reverse it.
Whatever. We're gonna reverse it and talk about evolution and how things have evolved over the last 6 years for you. So evolution from Mr. Dave Ramsey. I know that you don't follow him anymore. I want to know how that happened because your story reminds me similarly of ours. We got started with Dave Ramsey. We can never not credit the fact that that was what got us started. It gave us great momentum. It got us to discover the debt-free community on Instagram and Facebook. And then things changed for us. So where did they change for you when you decided, hey, this guy's kind of an ass fuck. I don't want to follow him anymore.
Oh, man. Dave Ramsey. You know, when I first started, I've never 100% liked him all the way. I remember reading the book and my life changed because of Dave Ramsey. But I remember being like, I remember giving my mom the book and being like, listen, there's a lot of Christian bullshit in this. Just try to see past it. Try to see past the saver, spender, woman, man thing that he goes off on for about a chapter. Just financial advice, debt freedom, emergency fund. Please just absorb this information. So even at the beginning, I was always like, oh, this guy is definitely like way more conservative Christian than I would ever typically seek out, ever. But I think things really changed for me when I did get my separation. I think that's when, when I first started with Dave Ramsey, I really drank the Kool-Aid. I was 100% rice and beans, sell everything I have, get on a budget, no fun, work until I die. I was like a Dave Ramsey fundamentalist. And I judged other people who were making, in my opinion, dumb financial decisions. I was an asshole. It really was. And then I got divorced and life hit me in the face. And I realized that Dave Ramsey is marketing to a very specific kind of white person. And I had to take out a car loan right after my separation because my 2004 Saturn Ion was like two-toned color. The interior was destroyed. The transmission was literally falling out. Like I could not drive that car anymore. It cost too much to fix it. Like my car literally cost like $900. Like it was so bad. It was the car I got in college and I drove it until it literally fell apart. And so I decided, because I was newly single and I was the only one taking care of me, like I'm going to get a newer car. And so I put $3,000 down and I took out $14,000. And I remember being so shameful. So I felt so much guilt because I was like, I'm preaching that you shouldn't do this, but I'm in a position where I have to. And that's really where it changed for me. I was like, I need this car and I'm not going to drive around in a rust bucket because I don't want to be stranded on the side of the road and put myself in danger. And I remember just feeling such guilt. And I got some hate from the community when I posted it, because at that time people weren't really, I think it's evolved from Dave Ramsey or go to hell into you do you boo boo. Mm-hmm. And we hadn't really gotten to the you do you boo boo yet. So I was just like stuck in the middle of people being dicks to me and me being a dick to myself. And that's really when it changed, is when I had to get that car loan. And then, 2020 happened. And that was really where I was like, fuck this dude, because, George Floyd was murdered and COVID happened and just all of that coincided with his lawsuits of wrongful terminations. And I just was like, this dude is fucking crazy. And that's really when I took the hard turn away from him. So it was like a 2-year process of really like being like, no thanks. And I mean, before that, I was reposted on his Instagram. I worked with Ramsey Solutions. I did giveaways. Like, I'm sure if I hadn't have put my foot down and called it out on my page, I would have probably be at the influencer event that just fucking happens in Tennessee, you know? So yeah, I mean, I'm not okay with Ramsey Solutions. I think that he is a crazy conservative Christian evangelical that is very damaging and uses shame and guilt to push his products to become the, $200 million net worth that he has. And that's that. I mean, some of my clients are very close with Ramsey Solutions, and I think that the more I'm in this industry, the more I will come up with up against that, and that's their choices. I'm not, you do you, but that's just not what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I want to say first off, thanks for talking about the car loan stuff. Thanks for sharing. I know that's personal and difficult, but that's something that we really resonated with because we were both raised at times by a single mother. And while I had, family help and those around us who loved us and were willing to help, I think about kind of the same thing. My mom would have been stuck somewhere with 3 kids in the car on the side of a freeway and would have maybe needed help more times than she would have been able to get people there to help, right? And so I really resonate with you mentioning that like if I'm out here by myself, I need a car that is as reliable as possible. And a $17,000 car, by the way, is not anything exorbitant. Yeah. You're not driving, a $80,000 truck or, Tesla around or something. So I just want to say first, thanks for sharing that. And then the second thing being that, for us in 2020, we kind of really had that epiphany with him too. Obviously, we had just gotten started. Not just gotten started. We had been in it for a little over
a year.
But when everything happened with George Floyd's murder, we really started to recognize like the silence of it all. And I've always personally struggled with my white silence. I've really haven't done a good job of speaking out against things and being strong enough to do that. And it was kind of like, okay, wait, like this is the line in the sand. This is where it has to stop. And we were like laying in bed one night and I just looked at Haley and I was like, I think we're done with Dave Ramsey. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I'm deleting his podcast off my phone right now. And like, we're done. And she was like, cool, let's be done. And that was kind of it. But it was very hard for me as somebody who was, I put a lot of pressure on myself as kind of like the man in the family, right? And was like, I need to work hard to get my family out of debt and be a better leader. And then you see all the crap that Dave Ramsey's saying and just making guys and others, I think, like me, who are trying to provide for their wife and kids feel like shit, and then alienating the entire other spectrum of the communities that we have. Like, never does he talk about transgender issues. Never does he talk about non-binary humans. It's very singular in nature, and it's gross. It's remarkably gross. And so it was just kind of around that same time, like you said, around the George Floyd murder, where it was like, we're done. Like, this is enough.
Yeah. We started questioning things around middle of 2020, and we sat on it for about 6 months thinking like, okay, we're really starting to question a lot of the things he's saying and just who he is as a person and why we're following him. And then it was one day, it was right after we make posters every New Year's with giant like manifestations of our year. And it was right before that we were like, okay, we're done. And it was a very hard, like, we are closing this door permanently, and we have not listened to a single podcast of his since. And we were the people that listened 3 times. Like, he has 3 hours of episodes a day. We listened every single day for all 3 hours. It was very cult-like. And then I feel like there was a lot of like trauma that had to be unpacked for months and months and months. It's been almost a year now, and I'm constantly, you talked about the guilt with your car, but I'm constantly thinking, like, this is shaking me in ways that it shouldn't, and Dave Ramsey did this to me. Like, these certain things that come up make me so incredibly uncomfortable, and I shouldn't feel shame going to spend $150 on makeup yesterday when I budgeted for it.
Yeah.
But that shame was so deeply rooted in everything that he did. It made me like, it makes my like goosebumps.
Dude, it makes me cry.
It makes me so mad
'Cause if
because
I feel-
I'm
it's like
Yeah.
brainwashing.
Like-
yeah, like I'm.
Sorry, go ahead, V.
It's no, I like when you're saying like it makes me cry. It's like you know, I was so young when I started. I mean, I was 22 when I started this, and I was just at such a vulnerable part of my life. Like I had just got out of college, and you know, I didn't have my friends around. Like I didn't have a big institution anymore to really like be with peers. I felt like I was flailing. And Dave Ramsey was like there to be like, you're a part of something that's bigger, you know? And yeah, I drank, I'm very serious when I say I drank the Kool-Aid. It is a cult. And it is a cult. I'm working on, and I have been, and I've struggled with it like literally for 6 months, writing how I escaped the Dave Ramsey cult. It's been hard to write. And I don't know when I'm going to be done. I don't even know if I'm going to share it because I'm scared of Ramsey solutions because they're so huge and prolific and, you know, crazy. But yeah, the shame and the guilt. I remember, so for your listeners, I am best friends with Sammy Womack over at A Sunny Side of Life. And I remember last Thanksgiving, I was in a store. And Joe, my husband, wanted to get like this vest. And it was like $100 vest. And like I went and I sat in the corner of that store and had a legitimate panic attack because I was like, this might not be budgeted for. I don't know if we should do this. What if I don't have enough money? And it was just, my thoughts just started to tumble over each other. And I was like, holy shit, I am still dealing with the Dave Ramsey trauma of like, you shouldn't spend money because you're poor. Like that scarcity mindset, that shame, that guilt, that internal voice that tells you you are not worthy because you're in debt or you're poor or you don't make an X amount of money. It haunts me.
It's damaging.
It is so dangerous, so damaging. And yeah, it's had a lasting effect on me. And I still get super uncomfortable. I still get panicky. I still tear up a little bit. Like going into a store makes me overwhelmed. It took me a really long time to be okay with like shopping again, kind of thing. So yeah, like and I've talked to many different ex Dave Ramsey followers, and it's the same thing. It's the same thing, and it's
almost like there's a lot of mind like brainwashing stuff that I feel like happened, but it's like we gave him control over everything in our lives, our happiness, our money, our future. And then all of a sudden when you decide, just like when people leave a cult, I'm no longer following this person. We put him on such a high pedestal that I feel like it took a long time to figure out like, okay, well now what? Like we're not following Dave Ramsey. We never really did things perfectly, although we were very, very, very hard Dave Ramsey people. We did things that I knew that he wouldn't approve of, and we constantly had conversations like, "Oh, well, Dave wouldn't approve of this." Like we would talk through.
Like he's in your life.
Yeah.
Like he's right here.
Like a first name basis. Dave wouldn't tell us to do this, and so with a Roth IRA, you can cash out the contributions at any time, and we did that. We took out $16,000 from a Roth to pay off debt, and I felt so bad about it for months until finally, I think recently, it's been within the last few months that I'm like, we did what was right for us in the situation. I don't regret any of it, but I felt immense shame going through all of those things, knowing that Dave wouldn't approve.
Yeah.
This is bad. Yeah. This is really bad.
Yeah, exactly. First name basis with Dave, Uncle Dave. We all called him Uncle Dave. I mean, like, I just think about how insidious it is and how you don't think that anything's weird about that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you're told to wear your weirdness as a badge of honor. You know, like wear your Dave Ramsey extremism as a badge of honor. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And actually, I talked to you earlier about the video that came out. It's on my stories right now, but it's a part of Fundy Friday. And I don't know anything about their platform other than they talk about fundamentalists, and they just came out with a Dave Ramsey one. And I highly recommend anybody listening to go watch that, because it was everything. Everything in that video was why I stopped following Dave Ramsey. And I really would love for a cult expert to go in and really examine it, because, you know, I made that video, my viral reel. It got like 2 million views. I blew my Instagram up for a bit. But it was like, you know, name something that seems like a cult but isn't. And I said Dave Ramsey. And that was the whole video. And the response was just, it was mind blowing. Yeah, it was definitely a chapter of my life that affects all areas of my life now, and will continue to as I'm in this industry. But personally, yeah, I think it did a lot of damage. It did more damage than good for me.
Yeah, we followed Dave for about 2 years, and so I can't imagine what that is feeling for someone who was 4 years or 5 years. It's just a lot. In summer of 2020, we led a Financial Peace University course. we led FPU.
Mm-hmm.
We recruited our friends and family. I mean, hardcore.
Yeah.
We were like, guys, come work with us. It's the best thing ever. It's helping us get out of debt. And those memories come up on my Facebook, and I'm like, that is like an MLM. Like, I mean,
we weren't even making money off it.
No, we made no money off of it.
But did you get paid?
We didn't get paid. I mean, sure, we got the Every Dollar app free for a year. So we got a free app, but no wonder they thought we were crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's understandable. Yeah. I mean, the good thing is that ourselves, others that have been in the Dave Ramsey, cult, Instagram has allowed us to learn personal finance beyond that and grow and find others to get information from that are aligned with our beliefs and who we want to be as human beings. And so that's made it easier, because I only imagine those folks who maybe back in the day didn't want to continue to follow Dave Ramsey and left and had no other
alternative
opportunities. Yeah. No other space where somebody would listen and help them and give them advice and cheer them on and all of those things that if you're in the Ramsey crowd, you'll get. But the moment you're done with it, I mean, it's vicious and it's harsh. And I mean, that's the only hate we've ever gotten on our podcast. Like, we have 3,000 followers and like a tiny little podcast as a hobby of ours. And we did our Dave episode, and like out of nowhere, people are like, these people are stupid. And you're like, what the hell? Like, where did you come from? Are you just like search terming Dave's name to try and find who's bad mouthing him? Like, it was very weird. And it just shows you how absolutely ridiculous that group is. And luckily, like I said, luckily we have folks like Vee and others who we can still learn from and continue on our journey of like financial wellness post Dave.
I think if anyone's listening and you're resonating with some of what we're saying, and you do listen to Dave or you follow Dave, feel free to reach out to one of us. We can talk you through these feelings, because they're very, very freaking real. Like, I can't even describe the level of shame and embarrassment and guilt that I felt for such a long time, and it does not have to be that way. Like,
no, I mean, you have three people tearing up over over 3 adults tearing up over their experience with Dave Ramsey. So you're not alone if you've been through a similar path that all 3 of us have been on. And I think, especially with Vee Frugal Fox and friends, I would say, because there are many different financial educators in this space that will not shame you. They will not make you feel like shit. They will not pin people against each other in classist ways. It's a shame that Dave has the platform he does because it is so damaging. But there are people like this podcast, like my platform, like Lexa over at the Avocado Toast Budget. Even Tori Dunlap, she was probably one of the first big influencers that was like, fuck Dave Ramsey. I remember, and she got so much goddamn hate for that. But now she is who she is.
Yeah.
Nika at Debt Free Gonna Be. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on about people that provide such quality educational content, can help you get out of debt, can help you with any financial question that you could ever imagine. There are literally experts that are giving away free money advice, and it is not centered around evangelical fundamentalist beliefs. It's not surrounded in shame and guilt. It's not, come buy my book that funds COVID Christmas parties. There are people out there that you can listen to and absorb that aren't Dave Ramsey. And I'm so glad, like you said, that those are alternatives now.
Yeah. And you're right. There are experts out there giving it away for literally free. Like, they post a reel and you're like, what? And then you can go do a little bit more digging through their page and find so much content of like just financial brilliance that is also sprinkled in with like, hey, I love you and be well no matter where you're at. And you're like, oh my God, like I needed this and I'm a grown adult struggling through a pandemic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the best.
I'm tearing up at that because it's true. It's like at the end of the day, fuck, life's too short, man. Like, why are you yelling at me for being a dumb idiot because I went to college? Like,
yeah.
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
We all have to do what we have to do, and it's going to vary from person to person. Your happiness is going to vary from person to person. What makes you happy? Like, hell, I spent so much money on eyelash extensions this summer, and the whole time I was like, this is so pricey. Like, and we finally, like, we just sold our fucking house. Like, I can get eyelash extensions. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Yes, you can, girl. Yes, you can.
Everybody on Instagram was like, your eyelashes look great.
Yeah. And I'm like, you're literally
gassing you up
validating everything that I need right here.
Worth it.
Yeah.
Every penny was worth it.
So great. I loved it. All right. Well, Vee, we have a famous last question that I want to ask you. If you could put a stop sign on anybody's financial journey, where would you put that stop sign and what would you stop them from doing? Maybe a poor choice or an irrational decision. What do you think is the big thing that you'd be like, pause that?
It's more like an inaction. Like, stop whatever you're doing if you do not have an emergency fund. Like, I'm going to come across the screen and I will slap you. Stop it. Because... So famous Dave Ramsey advice, $1,000. Well, when he created, the baby steps, that was in like the 80s, 90s, whatever. So that fund, that $1,000 is now 2,000 when you count cost of living and inflation. So my advice is to please save at least 1 month's worth of expenses before you do anything else. Investing, paying off debt, saving for, I don't know, a car, a house, whatever, eyelash extensions. I don't give a shit. But please save money. And once you hit that initial 1 month worth of savings, just continue to put money away. I mean, $20. I don't care how much it is, but you're going to need that money one day, and you want to be prepared for an emergency, no matter what that looks like. So please save money and have an emergency fund and a high yield savings account. I use Ally. It's not sponsored. I'm not an affiliate. I just really like them because they have a great bucket system. You can Google that. But save money. Don't do anything else before you do that.
That was beautiful. I couldn't agree more. That's a really, really good piece of advice because something will happen. Something will pop up.
That might be the first time we've gotten have an emergency fund as advice too. We've had a couple repeats of like, don't buy a new car or, don't wait to start investing or like, whatever you want to do, just do it. Take action. but that might be the first time we've had somebody reference that. And it's so true. Once we sold our house and we had an emergency fund, things came up so much with like needing the emergency fund. And we were like, oh, thank goodness. We had one of the dogs got bit by a rattlesnake over the summer. And
oh my God.
Yeah, we had to rush him down to the ER, and it was $2,000. And we were like, oh, I hope Walter's okay. We weren't like, how are we going to pay for this? And it was like, it was just, like I've said before, it was a speed bump and not a wall, because we had an emergency fund that we didn't have to worry about things popping up. So that's great advice. That's awesome. Yeah. Well done. We've had this is like episode, we're up in close to the 60s now, right?
Well, I don't know when this
mid
will go out,
60s. Whenever this is, we've been doing this for a year and a half, and you're the first time emergency fund's been brought up. So bravo.
Good job.
Oh, well, I got to be different somehow, y'all.
Round of applause for Vee.
There's a reason you're running 10 different accounts for personal finance creators.
This is it.
Yeah.
Golden advice. You're welcome.
Exactly.
All right, Vee. So where can everybody find you and connect with you? They need to do that right now. Like pause and do that. Where can they find you?
You can find me at Vee, Frugal Fox. On Instagram and Twitter. I am also on TikTok, but I only do TikToks for Instagram reposting. So it's pretty barren over there. But yeah, Instagram is where I live, eat, and breathe. So, come follow me for shame-free, guilt-free financial advice. And, tell me that you heard me on this podcast, and you'll be welcomed into the Fox Den with open arms.
I love that. This was so awesome. Thank you so much for coming on to our podcast and for sharing your story. I know that with sharing stuff like this comes hate, and we need more people to just open up with some of the things that they've been through, especially the trauma that Dave Ramsey has all caused us. And I appreciate you for taking the time to chat with us today.
Yeah, and thanks for being vulnerable. Like, we really appreciate that, because I think the more that people can be vulnerable about this stuff, the more others are going to be like, okay, there's people in my corner. There's people, like I said, that love and care about me and just want me to be financially well. So thanks for that.
No problem. I had a really good time.
Awesome. Thanks, Vee. Take care. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Price of Avocado Toast. As always, we are so thankful to have had this conversation with you and so grateful to be a part of this community. Happy budgeting.
And happy holidays. You've got this, Toasties.
Thanks for listening to the Price of Avocado Toast. If you vibed with this episode, share it with a friend that you're comfortable having money talks with. And if you don't mind, we'd love if you could rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
If you're in need of my support as a financial coach, message me on Instagram. I'd love to help in any way that I can. Until next time.